Robot Giraffe.
Hey folks, welcome to another wild ride through a comedian's legendary career. Today we're unraveling the mythos around Louis C.K., a guy who really needs no introduction. But just in case you live under a rock on Mars, here's a quick recap. Louis C.K. exploded onto the scene in the 90 seconds as a fresh new voice, got his own show Louis on HBO, had parts in movies, then launched his career into the stratosphere in the 2000 seconds with his FX show Louis. He became known for his candid, crass takes on parenting, relationships, masculinity, and even duck vaginas. His comedy made him a household name and internet sensation. But then, well, things took a turn. Allegations around some inappropriate behavior led to fallout and reproach from all sides. But while Louis stepped back from the spotlight for a while, he still managed to bounce back with new material and specials, proving his comedy chops could withstand the controversy. They say comedy is tragedy plus time. With Louis C.K., it's seconds. So how did Louis C.K. rise to comedy fame, craft his signature brand of humor, weather the storms of scandal, and still keep audiences cracking up through it all? Well, rebels, grab some popcorn and let's dive into the wild journey of comedy's king of cringe. Trust me, it's gonna be a party and a half. Louis C.K. entered this world as Louis Sheikley. I know, total supervillain name. Born in Washington, D.C., but raised in Mexico City till age 7. Even as a kid, he was a handful, once pulling a Woody Woodpecker and destroying the entire air conditioner with a hammer. Clearly an auspicious start for someone destined to smash comedy boundaries later in life. Now Louis was raised Catholic, and let's just say he had some thoughts about Catholic school that later inspired some wild comedy bits. I'm looking at you, of course, but maybe. But Louis' early life wasn't all hijinks and hilarity. His parents split up when he was young, and he moved back to the States with his mom and sisters, living in Boston and New York. Though pretty downbeat, these experiences shaped Louis' sensibilities as a dark humorist. During his Catholic high school days, he even won a contest roasting the nuns with a banter piece, so you could say comedy was his salvation. But growing up, Louis found an escape in comedy albums from the likes of Richard Pryor and Steve Martin. Their unrestrained humor showed little Louis you could say whatever you wanted on a stage. Louis also became enthralled with Steve Martin's zany antics and George Carlin's irreverence. He snuck off to watch Eddie Murphy's deliriously profane stand-up as a kid, and became convinced he wanted to be a groundbreaking comic. Though his mom wasn't totally convinced comedy was a stable career plan, Louis took amateur gigs at local comedy clubs, honing his own brand of humor night after night. At only 20 years old, Louis hit the ground running as a stand-up comic in 1984 Boston, but he quickly learned how cutthroat comedy clubs could be, with bookers giving him crappy slots and even heckling him on occasion. After bombing his first televised gig on a 5-minute spot, Louis decided he needed to double down, so he moved to New York City into a roach-infested apartment/VD clinic, and forced himself to do sets every night, even if that meant convincing a club owner to give him stage time after a show at 1 a.m. And to summarize what his early time in the comedy genre was like, well, no comments. Let's take a look at what the guy himself had to say, shall we? I hated my act. I had been doing the same hour of comedy for 15 years, and it was shit, I promise you, and I was working places like Chinese restaurants. His determination started to pay off when his idol Steve Martin called him and asked Louis to write for a new show he was creating. Louis thought it was a prank call initially, but ended up writing some episodes and even appearing in small parts. It gave Louis his first glimpse of the big leagues, and made him believe even a weirdo like himself could make comedy history. But Louis wasn't satisfied playing the traditional showbiz game. He had his own daring artistic vision he wanted to pursue. While grinding on the NYC comedy scene, Louis steadily carved out his own brand, a deeply personal, brutally honest style that wasn't afraid to make audiences squirm. In the 90 seconds, Louis was grinding on the stand-up circuit, but started crafting a unique comedic voice. He dwelled on gruesome ideas like if murderers should rape their victims after killing them, just to see audiences squirm, but he also tapped into his own neuroses and insecurities, joking self-deprecatingly about his looks and body. This evolved into his more familiar style, long confessional riffs on being a dad, his own flaws, and even letting out emotions guys are told to suppress. Louis became nakedly candid about everything from sex to suicide, daring crowds to confront the darkness, but making it hysterical with his goofy delivery. He also created oddly relatable fantasies, like wanting to fly through space in Superman pajamas, or lusting after a hypothetical hot MILF neighbor. This imaginative humor made Louis material feel more alive and idiosyncratic than standard comedy club fare. He started weaving elaborate, biting social commentary into his sets. His material evolved from surface-level gags into nuanced observations about life that both cut to the core yet still left you howling. He's talked about how before he had kids, as long as he made enough money to pay the bills, he was happy. He could live in tiny, shitty apartments and eat ramen noodles and it was fine. When he had his first daughter, things changed. He realized if he wanted to give his daughter a good life, he was either going to have to start earning more money as a comedian or find another job. So from that point on, he started working harder, started writing new stuff more often, started getting more personal in his comedy and found his style. A lot of comedians do a lot of old material throughout their careers. He mentioned once before that he learned from George Carlin to scrap all your old material after a year or special. That way you'll always have something new to say or even dig deeper on certain thoughts. That's what made him a better comedian. Speaking of unique comedic creations, Louis blessed us with plenty, and his stand-up is chock full of immortal bits, like desperately trying to locate a sock he used for private time. Hey, we've all been there. The itchy anus bit, the ol' F-bomb tirade, his sweeping rant on technology. This is greatest stuff here, folks. Louis C.K. believes comedy is all about pushing boundaries, and pushing people's boundaries too, apparently, and his stage persona became an extension of his authentic self, an aggrieved, melancholic schlub who can't seem to catch a break, an Everman underdog we can't help but root for. Louis also spawned a whole mythology around hilariously mundane topics. From an epic story about buying a cake late at night to a 12-minute tirade about the word of course, he could take the most inane slice of life and spin it into an absurd observation of human nature. Though he often took on taboo topics, this playful creativity ensured the joke was on Louis, not his targets, and that unique balance paved the way for today's comedy that pushes boundaries. You know a Louis C.K. set is going well when the laughter turns to screams. Louis C.K. is still apologizing for this hated favorite, a bit on homicidal pedophiles that reach the lows of comedic darkness, even for him. When you fuck a kid, you gotta toss him, he says. The guy could just call you, he says, taking on the kid fucker's voice. Hey, I fucked your kid. You want me to drop him at soccer? And let's not forget the eating dolphins joke. It's not that CK knows eating the dolphins that end up in tuna fish is wrong. He does know, he just doesn't care. It's more the feeling he gets when he holds a can of dolphin-safe tuna. Yeah, he says, but somehow it's just not gonna be as good. I want to do the right thing, but it's probably kinda bland. And of course, can't wrap up this section without mentioning how he thinks kids suck. Even his own. My guy has made antinatalists proud. By the 2000 seconds, Louis was already comedy royalty, but still hungry to innovate. After some short-lived cult shows, he convinced FX to give him a modest budget for his own series with complete creative control. He directed the cult hit Pootie Tang, wrote for primetime shows like The Chris Rock Show, and dropped knockout specials like Chewed Up and Hilarious. Plus the legendary Louis C.K. Show Louis was born in 2010. It provided an unfiltered glimpse into his life as a hapless single dad stumbling through the absurdities of life. With its indie film vibe and experimental format, Louis let Louis take bold risks, with episodes tackling topics like PTSD among soldiers, or even exploring the word fat $. Some segments were downright absurdist, while others were poignant glimpses into Louis' psyche. But the show became a phenomenon, earning Emmy nominations and critical acclaim for revolutionizing the sitcom format. Louis' reign as the comedy king was cemented. Soon he was selling out arenas and becoming one of the first comedians to offer specials directly through his website. He pioneered a new business model and surged to global stardom. He is considered one of the most influential and critically acclaimed stand-up comedians of all time, winning multiple Emmy, Grammy, and Writers Guild awards over his career. But Louis was more than just a funnyman. He was a cultural force who shaped the comedy landscape. He spoke openly about taboo topics like sex and death with insight and humanity. His comedy made the world a little less lonely. Louis also revolutionized DIY comedy entrepreneurship, self-releasing specials directly to fans. He proved an artist could succeed without playing by the usual Hollywood rules. With his rising prominence, Louis' material also increasingly skewed political and socially conscious. He riffed extensively on technology and smartphones, once miming yanking a car off a cliff when its GPS frustrated him. His later specials took on cancel culture, gender assumptions, and the dangers of political bubbles. Never one to pander, Louis attracted controversy by defending the use of slurs in comedy, but his willingness to debate political correctness also sparked important discussions on free speech versus accountability. And while not all agreed with Louis' conclusions, he undeniably led the charge in comics addressing hot-button issues through a hilarious lens. However, by 2017, Louis' own behavior put his comedy legacy in jeopardy. Several female comedians accused him of inappropriate sexual conduct that included gratifying himself in front of them. They say Louis C.K.'s comedy brings people to tears. Non-consensual masturbating in front of them will do that. They say the best jokes come from a place of truth. In Louis C.K.'s case, that place seems to be in front of an unsuspecting woman. My guy took the expression "get a room" way too literally. The allegations prompted outrage and serious re-evaluation of Louis' brand of humor. They say never meet your heroes. With Louis C.K., also avoid small, enclosed spaces. But hey, at least with Louis C.K.'s comedy, you always know the climax is coming, whether you want it or not. Amorite. Louis acknowledged the truth of the accusations and expressed deep remorse about abusing his power over fellow artists. The fallout was swift, with networks severing ties and Louis retreating from view in disgrace. For someone who once joked society is crumbling and I'm part of the problem, it was a sobering reckoning. Louis lost millions and his unimpeachable comedy god status. Though he still had supporters, Louis struggled to find performance venues and rebuild trust. His honest reckoning with the incidents, while controversial, showed his willingness to evolve, and being a public figure took its toll. He opened up about his mental health struggles stemming from the constant criticism artists face today, but he kept soldiering on. The documentary regarding the whole sexual misconduct mess titled Sorry, Not Sorry recently premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival. The film explores the #MeToo allegations against Mr. Louis C.K. The documentary delves into the allegations, the impact on the women who came forward, and Louis C.K.'s resurgence in comedy. The filmmakers, Caroline Sutt and Cara Mones, were initially hesitant to make the film but wanted to address the complex issues of consent and power surrounding Louis C.K.'s case. They focus on the experiences of the women who went public with their encounters with him, some of whom struggled in their comedy careers afterward. Notable figures from the comedy world, such as Jen Kirkman and Michael Schur, are interviewed in the film. However, Louis C.K. is not interviewed, and many prominent comics declined to be part of the documentary. In response, Louis' material transformed. His later comedy explored moral ambiguity and his own flaws with brutal self-reflection. He also honed his storytelling, with winding, vivid tales that captivated audiences, and his humble style made the comedy feel more like a conversation with a witty pal than a big-shot comedian on stage. Louis' authenticity is why we can't help but listen. During this career nadir, Louis crafted a new indoor stand-up set touching on his misconduct with searing honesty. He analyzed his actions unsparingly, not deflecting responsibility, and while still employing his signature crass humor, the tone became less flippant and more introspective. In his later special Sorry, Louis went further into social issues like gun violence, gender relations, and the complications of outrage culture. He seemed intent on pushing audiences to think beyond surface reactions. While Louis still indulges fun and live vulgarities, his recent material displays a more mature perspective, not taking fame or freedom from criticism for granted. The events clearly changed Louis as a performer and public figure, but his desire to provoke laughs in the face of life's shadows remains unshaken. Louis always was a great comedian, but he paid more attention to writing than stand-up. He wrote for a late-night show, a sketch show, and movies. Also, he made a bunch of short movies, but then he started to really working on his stand-up. That's why he improved so much later in his life. Also, Louis talks a lot about how he get really good at time management, since with having kids your free time is really limited. Say what you will about Louis' personal conduct, but his influence on comedy is undeniable. He made confessional, conversationally obscene humor ubiquitous. He took creative risks and spearheaded comics selling content on their own terms. And for better or worse, Louis made no topic too sensitive for the comedy club. By boldly mining humor from dark human impulses, he's inspired generations of comics with his fearless creative spirit, and he still sells out venues with his searingly honest sets. Because nobody exposes the gnarly absurdities of everyday life quite like Louis. His jokes dig into those uncomfortable but relatable truths we all experience yet never discuss out loud. At least with Louis C.K., you leave knowing exactly what you paid for. And of course, it is sad how much Louis the series clearly influenced a bunch of shows like Raimi, Master of None, Crashing, and Atlanta, but he's not getting much credit for it. That whole blending the surreal, realism thing in the life of an average awkward guy in some big city but filmed in a cinema verite kind of way. Yes, Louis was also highly influenced by Woody Allen and David Lynch, but he was pretty vocal about his love for them. Sure, Louis is like some exiled guy now, but damn, our guy Louis deserves at least a shout out. And even in his 50 seconds, the guy shows no signs of slowing down. He continues touring and pumping out hilarious specials and shows on his website that remain uncensored and uncompromising. Louis remains a flawed but brilliant pioneer. His comedy shines an unforgiving light on both the beauty and ugliness of being human, and we laugh because it's true. Well folks, that wraps up our whirlwind tour through the magnificent messiness that is Louis C.K. We've seen how this comedy renegade persevered against the odds to become one of the great voices of his era. His legacy will live on in all the boundary-pushing comics he's inspired. Let me know in the comments which classic Louis bits stick out in your mind, or shout out your favorite underrated gems of his. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more comedy deep dives, you funny rebels. Thanks for watching. What are your thoughts? Please subscribe. Now is a great time to do so. You can get in early, before I sell out. You can be here, and after I sell out you can know you were here before I was cool. Also, only like 10% of you are subscribed. Like, comment, share. We're not. I'm not your dad. Have a great day. Stay grateful. Now get the heck out of here.